Welcome to Chatting Shit with Ostique, the podcast series where we chat about shit with inspirational people from all walks of life. Today, we are joined by the wonderful and inspiring David Reid. We hope that you enjoy this conversation. David, welcome to Chatting Shit with Ostique.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm very, very good.
Good. Why don't we start with kind of you introducing yourself and perhaps telling us how you came to have your stomas?
Yeah, so my name is David Reid. I'm now 34. Whenever I was 26, I was diagnosed with the Crohn's disease after a long period of being unwell. Probably a lot of your listeners will know about the sickness that entails, running to the toilet all the time, ending up in A&E because you were throwing up for so long. So that's what happened in 2016. I was diagnosed with that. So at 26, you're thinking you were getting through life well, and then all of a sudden you end up with some sort of immune disease that kind of starts to take over your life, unfortunately. But the Crohn's disease was well controlled by medicine. A lot of the medicine you get is you go for infusions for every 6 weeks or so, and they pump a lot of drugs into your body, and you feel well for about 6 weeks, and then unfortunately, you have to go back then for more medicine. But that was kept under control for quite a long period of time. But I always had what was called, from the start of my diagnosis, which was a fistula, which is an abnormal passageway between my bile and my bladder. Unfortunately, there was things going between the two that are not meant to go. You wouldn't wish that on anybody. So at the end of 2019, it became very obvious that I was going to have some sort of operation to really fix this issue, because I was getting UTI infections over and over again, and it was an absolutely horrible event. And I remember sitting with the surgeon and asking the surgeon, are you just going to take out this little piece of my intestine and sew it back up together again? And he was like, oh no, I think we're going to have to take the whole thing, unfortunately, because it is just so much diseased. So that was big at the time, and I remember going through the operation, and it was very, very tough. Obviously, a lot of your listeners who have stomas or know someone with a stoma know how hard it is going through that type of operation. You wake up and your body has changed, and it's hard to get your head around this new thing that is on your body that you have to actively manage every day, and keep on top of. But that was okay. I was about to be discharged.
Was your urostomy.
Yeah, ileostomy. Yes, that was. So what actually happened was they didn't actually have to they actually left a lot of my large bile intact and took away the last part of my small intestine. But I was ready to be discharged about a week later, and I was taken to a small room, unbeknown to myself, to be told that they had found a cancer in at the end of my small bile, which it's extremely. A small bowel cancer is quite rare. It's hard to. Most bowel cancers are in the large bowel, whereas this was in the small bowel. It was very, very rare. But the good news was that they believed that they had got it all. That there had been some evidence that had been in my lymph nodes, so they were wanting to give me chemotherapy, but the outlook of that was quite good. So at that stage, as a 29-year-old, I was embarking on 12 rounds of chemotherapy. You got it 1 week, you had a week off, and then you got it next week, and that was fine. So I got through that fine. That was 2019, and I got back on my feet again. I started going to the gym. I started starting to put things in place to live a better life, I suppose, trying to eat right, exercise and walk and doing all that kind of things, all the things that you are told to do. And at that time, we were in the pandemic, so that was a really kind of a weird time to be learning to live with a stoma, I guess. And I ended up meeting my partner in that stage, so life was fantastic. And it was the year after that, then I got a call saying, would you want to get your stoma reversed? And I said, oh, I don't know. I've been living this way for a year and a bit now. A stoma is predictable. There's not going to be no pain. That when you have to change it. All of that kind of stuff. But I was really encouraged to to get it reversed, because I suppose I was a young man, still a young man, but courage to get it reversed. So I went ahead and had that reversal, and that was fantastic. It was nice to start living life normally again. But unfortunately, that wasn't to be the case for me. About maybe 2 months, 3 months later, I started seeing blood in the toilet, unfortunately, again. And at that stage, I kind of put it down to maybe that's just normal, after having a surgery so big, having a reversal, and my bowel starting to get used to it again. But then I started to notice that it actually was not coming, unfortunately, from that end. It was coming out of my urine. So more and more tests I had to go, and I get more camera tests into my bladder, and it turned out that the cancer had actually moved from my bowel on top of my bladder, and it had sat just on top of the bladder. So it was a long process. It was maybe 4 or 5 months of going back and forth to the hospital, saying I was very keen on them not removing the bladder. I was very staunch in saying, no, I don't want this to be removed. I want, maybe you could take a bit of it away and sew it back up again. Maybe we could try chemotherapy. But the longer it went on, the more we realized that there was a lot going on in that pelvic area that shouldn't be going on there. So at the start of 2023, last year, no, the year before last year, unfortunately, I had to have a pelvic exenteration, basically where they took out my bladder. They took away most of my, they took away my rectum, most of my large bile. I have now a small little bit of large bile. And now I've been left with two stomas. So I have a urostomy now and an ileostomy. So I have kind of completed the set that way. And that was all good. At that stage, we kind of looked at it and went, this operation that has maybe put the cancer thing to bed, where I'm able to now again put it in the past, forget about it all, and go and live a normal life. But unfortunately, that wasn't to be. And last June, my first scan after the operation showed that the cancer had reoccurred again in this pelvic area. And that's basically me. Since that, I have been undergoing rounds of chemotherapy since to shrink it. There has been a little bit of spread, but I mean, I'm still very, very hopeful. There was the option of surgery at one stage, but unfortunately that expired because of waiting lists, because of having to wait on people getting back to me and scans and things. It really did take a long time. I'm a very, very positive person, I suppose. So I'm still hoping that I will be able to take this to remission. But we will see what happens with that. It's an ongoing project.
You are an incredibly positive person, and that is an awful lot for anybody to have to endure. And to be so wonderfully positive and bright is a real testament to kind of who you are. In terms of how this has impacted your mental health, obviously physically you've said this is a massive change, and actually perhaps having two stomas, how has that impacted you mentally? But also I do think it's worth exploring that physical interaction.
Yeah, it's very tough, and I remember probably the worst experience was the first time I had the ileostomy, because I felt that I had prepared well for it. I thought in my head I knew what to expect. And I tell people this, I tell people I work with all the time, that you cannot prepare for a stoma. I think you only really realize once that you have it, how that is going to affect you. And it is very, very mentally draining at times. And especially whenever you realize them, and this comes and goes with me, especially with my bladder, I realize at times I'm not going to get that back again. There's no way for me to go back to living a normal life like that again. And it can be, there's moments when you can feel really down. There's days when your stoma is not working properly. There's days when you can maybe go a week and have no leaks. And then there could be a day when you do get multiple leaks in one day, and you're sitting going, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, or why it's doing that. So there is days where you can really feel the depression. I wouldn't call it depression, but I would say that you do feel mentally down and low, and it's hard to deal with what's happened to your body. With the physical, it is hard sometimes to get your head around how your body has changed, and you can, I suppose, be angry about what has happened to your body and the changes that has been made. It can be very, very hard some days, and it really takes people around you to really standing with you to go, no, we've got you here, and we're going to help you through this.
Absolutely. And, you've touched on a couple of things, inclusive of support. What has that looked like for you?
Well, I have a fantastic support network of people in my life, which I really could not do what I do without a fantastic partner and a fantastic family. People who, have been with me in this journey and kind of understand, what I have been through. And it just takes a little bit of kindness on their part to just make a bad day a good day. And there is times where they kind of look and they maybe don't understand what it is like to have a leaky stoma, or things just not going your way possible that way. But they also do understand that, whenever I'm in that mood or whenever that is happening, they understand the little ways and kindness to be able to kind of put their arm around me and say, look, this it's going to be like this today, but tomorrow we hopefully is a better day.
Absolutely. And I think, often your support system often have lots of questions. It's a massive change for you, but it can often also impact that your wider circle. How have you kind of managed, like, talking to them about, the actual changes? Do they have lots of questions, or not? Or do you volunteer lots of information because you know what you're going through?
Yeah.
But sometimes, when people have never even heard of what a stoma is, there's a lot of education that goes with that.
I mean, I'm a very, very open person. I'm very open to sharing about what it is like to live with a stoma. And I think a lot of people can be scared whenever they think about, living with it. But I like to tell people, like, yes, that is a very scary thing, but you do manage. And some days it does become just a second nature. And with friends and family, obviously they've none of my there's no one I know really personally who has a stoma like I have or whatever. So it's very, very hard, especially when it comes to urostomy, because a lot of younger people now we see on social media and the likes, a lot of people, a lot of people do now have a colostomy or a urostomy, but very few people have or a urostomy, because I suppose bowel cancer or bladder cancer is something that is for maybe people who are older. So it is very hard that way. But friends and family, it's become second nature to be able to talk about that, and I think that's what breaks down the stigma too, because knowing someone who has a stoma means it is normal to you. It is normal to go, oh, I know such and such there, and they have a stoma too, and this is how they manage it. So I think, for people in all of our lives who may be faced with this surgery down the road, it is nice that stigma is being broken down, I think.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And you mentioned about work. How has that changed as sort of from the start of your journey to where you are now?
Yeah, so whenever I was first diagnosed with cancer, I was working as a self-employed web developer. So I was working with then a couple other guys. But I think going through that huge life change for me, I just thought, what, I kind of want to do something different. And at that time, I was obviously going through all the benefit forms and having to apply for like the universal credit and for PIP. And that really took my interest at that time, because I did have a lot of issues, and I was rejected from PIP and had to take my own case to appeal and all of that stuff. And then that experience, it really changed my kind of outlook. So after I finished my first chemotherapy, I went and done a course at our local law centre to become a benefits or welfare advisor. And so that has brought me into doing what I do today. So I work on Macmillan projects. So I work exclusively with cancer patients. So for example, whenever they get a cancer diagnosis, one of the cancer nurses will maybe say, would you like to talk about money with one of our advisors? So it's a beautiful job. I get to call up cancer patients and just have a wee chat about what they're doing, what they're going through, what sort of treatment they're having. And then we can talk about, okay, if you're going to be at work for so long, this is what we need to help you apply for. And we can help them sit down, do the forms, try and take some of that weight off the shoulders. We can look at grants they might be entitled to, or even other services that are offered, like complementary therapies that they might be able to access. So that is, my career has really changed, I suppose, in that time. But I found myself in this job where I just love doing what I do, and it's fantastic.
Amazing. For the benefit of people that don't know, what is PIP?
So PIP is personal independence payment. So it's a payment for those who have some sort of sickness or disability, which means that their day-to-day activities are curtailed, or they find it hard, or they need help from someone else to do things. So the questions that PIP asks is, for example, what about your washing, getting washed, or how about preparing food, or and then there's questions about your mobility. There's questions about I should really know this off the top of my head. Socializing with other people. And I think for the community, obviously the Ostique works in people who have cancer, IBD. This is something that affects all of us. Where we are, we do get affected, and especially with fatigue and pain, and all these things affect how we do our day-to-day activities. So the PIP process is you get a big weighty, it's a quite a weighty form with a lot of questions asked. But I would advise anyone who is going through that process to get independent advice from the likes of, for example, us as a Macmillan Benefit Advisors, or your local Citizens Advice, or something like that. Because at the end of the day, we see the questions all the time. We know what they're asking, and it really does help because we can take the information, we can have a conversation with a potential client and ask them about their day-to-day living, and take what the relevant information and put that on the form that way. So it's not the best process in the world, and I do hope that in the future that is changed, because sometimes people are put off by the process because it's so long and it's so weighty. But if you're really struggling with your day-to-day activities, you do need help, and you are finding that you are spending extra money on your illness, that is something that you should be planning for.
I mean, that's an amazing piece of advice there. But interestingly, like when you said, you applied and they rejected that. I mean, is that why having an advisor to really help you understand the questions is really important? Was it that you had answered the questions incorrectly, or is it that they don't actually necessarily want to kind of help?
Yeah, I found I probably was very naive with the questions. I maybe didn't give them the weight that they should have. Now, I remember finding out, my parents brought me the letter. I was lying in a hospital bed, and I found out that I had got 0 points in an assessment. The assessor had come to my house. They had asked all the questions. They had told me that, oh yes, I know someone. One of my friends has IBD. I understand that completely. But yet, whenever the assessment came in, I found that I had 0 points. And I find that that does happen a lot. A lot of people do get turned back. They get very, very little points, which means they don't get an award. And I think it is just nice to have someone who is outside of your situation to listen to what you have to say and put the relevant information down on the form. Now, that's not to say you can't do it yourself. There's plenty of people who can do it themselves. But I think it is just nice to be able to talk to someone who doesn't know your entire situation, but maybe has a little bit of understanding about what is going on. And I think maybe that's maybe the hardest part of that, because you have to tell someone else maybe things that you have not admitted to yourself before. For example, I have issues with incontinence, or I have issues with my mobility, and it's sometimes very, very hard to admit those things if you haven't admitted that to yourself or anyone close to you before.
Totally. And sometimes that mental battle with yourself can often be the hard part.
Yeah.
Really interesting. And are there any other kind of like things now that with your career shift and what you're doing, that as like a piece of advice for people in your situation?
Yeah, I suppose I have a really, I suppose, unique situation where I am a cancer patient, but I also then work with cancer patients. So I have my own experience with treatments, with waiting times, with going to the hospital for chemotherapy every other week. But yeah, I also then get to hear side stories from other people who are telling me about the experiences they go through. So I really enjoy that. Just for me, the benefit side of things is very, very important. It's important that people get the support they need when they're going through the cancer treatment. But for me, a lot of it is just listening to people too, and going, what's going on? Do you want to talk about it? Because I know the healthcare people who I always gravitated to, I've always been the people who go, let me just listen to what you have to say here. It's not, they're there to fulfill a role, whether it's to help with my stoma or to give me scans or do any of that kind of thing. But people who just listen to you and just have to just make you feel that what you have to say is valuable and worthy. That's the best healthcare staff I always find. But I mean, there is whenever you sent me the email for the podcast, there was a couple of things that I kind of thought, this is what I've had to learn, and this is what I would want to share with other people. And I suppose the first one is that right now in healthcare, you have to be your own advocate, and I think we're finding that more and more with the way that the healthcare system is stretched, with the waiting times. It's very, very hard to be overlooked, and it's very, very hard to have, and especially in IBD, it's very, very hard. It's nearly, I find it's on like a peg. Say if you have Crohn's disease or your colitis, any kind of little thing happening to your body can just a doctor or a healthcare staff member can just go, oh, it's just the Crohn's or colitis. That's what's causing that. But I think from my own experience, you have to keep on pushing. You have to, if you feel that there's something wrong with you, you have to keep on pushing. And whether that's you or whether that's a family member, the way that you get the best care is by being there all the time and by saying, this is what's wrong. We need to find a solution for that. And unfortunately, I think that sometimes you have to refuse the gaslighting sometimes. Unfortunately, whenever I went to get my bladder looked at, the doctor basically asked me if I was just dehydrated. That's why I was seeing blood. And I really do like this doctor, but to be telling someone who was a cancer patient, are you just dehydrated? Isn't it really blood in your urine? It can put patients off, and they can then go into their shell and go, well, maybe there's nothing wrong with me. And I do get the doctors probably do get annoyed because people become experts in their own disease, especially when it comes to IBD and cancer, and they know the answers and they know the symptoms, and they're very hyper vigilant about any kind of thing that goes wrong with them. But I think you just have to kind of fight for the healthcare that you deserve, because you deserve the best, and you deserve to be treated with dignity and to be listened to. So that would be the first one. It's just to be your own. You have to be your own advocate, or get someone who is going to push those doors for you, especially right now. And I think the second one is something that I have been learning for quite a number of years now. And I can't say I'm fully there, but it is that anger is always a valid emotion. And it's something that I've had to learn over the last few years, because obviously we've said that I am quite a positive person, and I was always under the impression, if you're angry, it always has to lead to some sort of positive emotion. But the more I've went through this journey, and the more that I have experienced what I've experienced, the more I realized that anger it's valid. I am a 34-year-old cancer patient. I should not have cancer. It's just not. I think maybe we always see cancer as a disease that's maybe there in the future for any of us, but not at the age that I've had it, unfortunately. And it can make you angry, having to go to the endless doctor's appointments, the endless scans, endless needles, endless all of this too. But I think it's also that you can be angry about how your body has changed, especially when you have a stoma, or like me, you have multiple stomas, because your body has changed, and unfortunately, some of them changes are irreversible. As maybe some of the changes that you didn't ask for, maybe a surgeon has made a decision for you. That's what I have anger about, a decision that has been made for you that you didn't make yourself, but unfortunately, that's what happened, and unfortunately, you just have to live with the circumstances of that. But I think it's also okay and valid to be angry at the healthcare that you did receive that was not up to standard, but also angry at the healthcare that you didn't receive whenever you need it, and end up that your situation worsens. And we all know that. We all know right now, because of waiting lists, because of stretched resources, things are very, very, very difficult right now. And I think it can be very hard for people to have a positive outlook about their health when they know that there is really a safety net that has been eroded for so many years now. And I think that's the second thing I would like to say is people, it is okay to be angry. It's okay to be angry at certain people. It's okay to be angry at certain situations, and never to feel shame for that, because at the end of the day, we all deserve to have the best of healthcare, and sometimes that just doesn't happen.
I think those two things are incredibly validating, probably for people listening, that it is okay to be upset. And, we often hear people say it's okay to have bad days, but it is also okay, as you say, anger is a valid emotion. There are things to be angry about.
Yeah.
There are also things to be really positive about. And I wonder, what are the things, are there any things that you now can't do but then also other things that you thought you wouldn't be able to do that you can.
Yeah, I suppose I am very, very lucky. I believe that, I'm living life now, and of course now life is different because I am still getting treatments, the chemotherapy. So it is. I mean, some of the side effects that horrific they are, tiredness, pain, all of that kind of thing. But I I don't think there's anything really. There's not much that I was doing pre-cancer, pre-stoma that I can't do now. And it is very, I think for a lot of people who are at the start of that journey with their stoma, they may look at that and go, I can't do this now and I can't do this. I always believe that you're always able to find a way. And obviously there's a lot more thinking involved. There's a lot more, will I have enough supplies? What if I go here and I have an issue and I have to change my stoma? That's always going through your head. Unfortunately, you're always thinking, where's the nearest toilet? But life can get back to normal again. It's a new normal, but life could get back to being beautiful again. You can do the things you want to do. Like I've been very blessed, being able to do a lot of travel and go in different places. Getting back to the gym, being able to lift heavy weights, being able to do all of these things that I didn't do before, but has given me a new lease of life. And I think whenever you do have a stoma and you have been, especially I suppose not cured, but some of some of the illness that you had before has been taken away. You do find a new lease of life, and you find that you have a joy for life that maybe was not there before. And that's not to say that there's days when you're like, I just wish this would go back again to what it was before. I wish I could go to the toilet normally. There's lots of days like that, but you find that most days that you are able to have that resilience to say, no matter what happens, I know I have two stomas now. I know I have a stoma, but I can live life. I can do what I need to do.
Where's like the most outrageous place that you've traveled to?
I haven't really traveled that many outrageous places. I suppose it's whenever I was finishing chemotherapy, I was telling all the healthcare nurses, "Oh yes, I'll probably get a big trip away, just to celebrate everything." And unfortunately, maybe about 4 months later, we were in the middle of COVID, and unfortunately, so I haven't had the chance to really travel as far as I like to. But it's just nice being able to get away with friends and being able to travel, especially see places out in the UK. Actually, because we weren't traveling that far during COVID, but recently we were in. Me and my girlfriend, we were in Tenerife in March time, and we were out on jet skis and things like that. Things that maybe last year after my huge surgery, I never thought that we would be doing. But it's just nice to be doing these things like a normal person.
That's amazing. But like you say, there is that added layer of thought. You have to think about taking enough supplies
Yeah.
and making sure that you're adequately prepared. Have you ever been in a situation where you were out and you didn't have that, and like, what did you do?
It is a very daunting situation when you realize that you're out somewhere, and even if things are going okay, you realize I don't have my supplies with me, and it can add that extra nervousness. Even, for example, you're heading to the supermarket, you're heading up to Tesco or whatever, and you realize, oh, I don't want my stuff with me. And I think as time goes on, that pressure does get less and less, where you're able to go places and not have to worry about that. But there's always sometimes that sneaky wee thought, what happens if this happens? And especially when you are going on a plane or traveling somewhere, it is very difficult. And I would be, unfortunately, I'm very much an overpacker, so I would have a lot of supplies. But there is times, especially when you're ordering supplies, where you've maybe used more than you expect, and the company is going to send you more supplies at a certain time, and it can be very, very nervous, and it can really affect your mental health, where you're going, I only have X amount of supplies to do me to a certain date. I really need to push it longer than the normal. So sometimes there's a real balancing act between having too much or too little, and sometimes it is very hard to manage that. But I think as you get on, you probably do gain experience, I suppose, managing your stomach replies, and you develop a little system where you have, like, I have a number of bags. I have a bag that I take out in the car. I have a bag that I leave at my partner's house. I have all these things that you kind of develop these wee systems, and they work at times. Most of the time, this works, thankfully.
What was it like in the airport? Was there any problems, or you just kind of sailed straight through?
I have found in the last few years that they are a lot more, I wouldn't say strict, but they're a lot more vigilant with people who have stomas. So it used to be you could go ahead and go through, and if they asked, for example, they wanted to pat you down, you could just say, look, I have a stoma here, and they would be very, very good at just, being very discreet about that. What I found in the last couple of years now is with these new machines where you have to put your hands in the air and they do a full body scan, there's a big push now on bringing you into a room to check down your stomas. And obviously, I'm a weird case because I have two stomas or whatever, but they have had to swab them stomas before, and it has. I suppose it does add an extra kind of nervousness to traveling, where you are going to be asking, "Am I going to be taken to another room here? Will I sail through?" And there is times where I have just walked through, no issues. So it is that unknown part where they might be asking, "Why do you have these supplies with you?" Most of the times it's positive, and I would never want to tell people that it's a scary thing, because at the end of the day, it is they're doing their job, they're scanning their stuff, and they're doing what they need to do. But I know there is a fear about traveling with a stoma, especially on planes. But I would tell people, and I tell people this all the time, I've never had any issues with flying on a plane with a stoma. It's never been an issue. It's never. I always heard the stories of my stoma, or your stoma will balloon up, or you'll have to go more. And I've never had any issue with that. Now everybody is different, but my experience has always been a positive experience with traveling that way.
And I think, like you say, you're being able to share that with people is really powerful and important. I mean, I don't know if you know that we're bringing out something called Ostique Connect, which is a platform to connect people with stomas with other people with stomas, pre-surgery, having had the surgery, reversal, all of that.
Yeah.
And I wonder, especially given your job, have you found that power of connection, actually being able to really relate to somebody versus talking to a nurse or a clinician, has that been really helpful for you? And is that something that people really find helpful, or do you think that that's not as necessary?
It's a fantastic tool I have. I think in my own career that I've experienced a lot of what my clients are going through, and you never want that to be about me. I don't really tell that many people on the phones, but sometimes if someone, for example, does have a stoma, it can really, and you're doing, for example, a form, it's very good to be able to open up to say, actually, yes, I have stoma too. I understand what you're going through, because stoma nurses are fantastic, and I have been really blessed with so many great stoma nurses who keep in contact with me and who are always there whenever I'm shaking my head going, I don't know what I'm doing wrong here. But obviously, a lot of them don't have stomas themselves, so it isn't. They haven't experienced the life of having and living with a stoma themselves. So it is fantastic, when you meet someone who has that same experience, and you do end up talking. I suppose a bag chat, I suppose, is what I would call it. You talk about what sort of supplies that you use, and there's people, oh, I have bad skin. You're like, well, have you tried this, or you should talk to your stoma nurse about doing this. So it is great knowing someone else with a stoma that is able to kind of point you in the right place, especially forums on the likes of Facebook and things like that, where you're able to kind of share your experience and say, have you tried doing this? Or you tried doing this? Or just reading what other people's experiences are, so it makes it easier for you to do. So I'm really looking forward to this app to connect with other people who have a stoma, because I think we are a growing community, and we have so much to share with each other to make all of our lives easier.
I totally agree. Like even small things, which aren't actually small things, like sleeping. Lots of the things that people often take for granted, how having a stoma can impact the way you sleep. You work on your side, you can't sleep in your front, and you have to wake up because you need to empty your bag. And again, like having two stomas, has that been really difficult when you go to sleep?
It's been tough. I suppose it's getting used to that now. With the urostomy, you hook yourself up to a night bag. That means you don't have to get up during the middle of the night to run to the toilet. So that has been a bit of a different change, not having to do any of that. But that also brings with it, you have to have the supplies to do that. Whenever you're going out, for example, if you're heading out to a hotel, if you're heading to your friend's house to stay, all of that, you have to pre-think about that and go, well, I'm going to need a night bag for that. Now, it does make it easy, but at times I suppose being a young man, I really taken back with the fact that I have to sleep with a night bag at this age to gather my urine, because obviously when you have a urostomy, your kidneys are, they're breaking down things all 24/7. With your stoma, a lot of my stoma, it would quieten down overnight, or my colostomy would quieten down overnight. I wouldn't have that much output. But with the urostomy, it's running all the time. It's doing work while you're sleeping. So you wake up with like a bag full of urine. As lovely as that sounds, in the morning you have to then dispose of whatever. But it has been learning. It's been difficult at times, but I do know there is a lot of people who are worried about having stoma and how they will sleep, whether they will be able to sleep on their sides. And I think you do find a little rhythm that works for you. You find out what you can and can't do, and you just adjust. Yeah, you adjust to it very, very quickly. And hopefully, at the start, I would have been having leaks during the middle of the night, and it was horrible. It really was horrible. But as time goes on, you do learn wee techniques that you're able to manage this, and you're able to put your stoma bags on a different way, or just do things that let you have a full night's sleep. So at the start it can be very, very difficult, but I would tell anybody that eventually things will settle down and you will learn to manage with it.
Totally. And when you do have to do this, as you say, if you're going out, you're staying in a hotel, or even with your partner, did you feel a certain way that anything would change, or did you feel a certain way having to have these night bags for the urine or anything like that?
Yeah, I guess it was difficult at the start. And I suppose you wake up from a huge surgery, and all of a sudden you don't go to the toilet in a normal way anymore. You don't. And I don't know, sometimes you can think, oh, well, I'm not a slave to, whenever I had Crohn's disease, I was a slave to the toilet. I had to always be near a toilet and had to go. Whereas there is a little more predictability with a stoma. You are able to stay out and not go to the toilet maybe as much at times. There is times when that's the opposite, when you do have to go and empty your stoma bag quite often. But I think you do. Um, I think the human nature, you do adapt to these things pretty quickly, and you do. And it's hard to tell people that who are on the start of their journey, who just got a stoma, because life has just changed so quickly, so fast for them. But it comes, and it's maybe cliche to say that, but it does become second nature. So when I'm heading out, for example, to a hotel, or you're heading out to here, you do just have a wee quick think about, what do I need to take with me? Is this going to be okay? And there's worries. There's worries about what happens if I have a leak, and so, especially in someone else's bed or in a hotel or stuff. But I mean, you have to realize that the staff are very, very good in hotels too, and especially when you're away on holidays and things like that, they're very understanding about these things, and a lot of them have knowledge of other guests who have had these issues, so they're able to kind of put things in place. For example, if you're heading away on holidays, they can give you like an extra bin, or they can change your bed on a daily basis, that kind of thing. So a lot of people are more understanding than sometimes we give them credit for.
That's really great to hear. And, like you said, finding a way that makes you comfortable, is really important, whether that's sleeping, intimacy, career, however that looks like. Before we end, I wonder if there, I mean, you've given so much amazing advice. Is there anything else that you would want to share for somebody who is facing surgery, whether that is urostomy or ileostomy surgery? Is there anything that you can kind of parting words?
I think if I was to tell any person starting their journey with a stoma, or someone who is maybe even thinking about surgery because they have some sort of pain, or they have really bad Crohn's disease or colitis, um, it's something that you should really consider, because I know from my own experience that I had the pain, I had the sickness, I had the running to the toilet all the time, and it was ruining. It really was ruining my life, because it really affected everything that was going on in your life, your career, your job, socializing, all of that. And I woke up from my stoma, and I was very low mentally, very low physically, and it was hard to take. But as time went on, I started to realize that pain, the sickness, it's all gone. And before that, I was ended up in A&E all the time, having to get fluids because of sickness and all of that. I mean, I haven't been in any really since that. So it took all that away. And now, unfortunately for me, they did find the cancer, and that led to a whole lot more things. But for someone who is starting off with their stoma, things will get better. And the first days, you are very low mentally, you're very low physically. You find it hard to adjust to the changes that have been made to your body. But as time goes on, it does become second nature, unfortunately, and you get used to it. And for a lot of people, they can get their stoma reversed back again if it's not working for them. But I think it's good to rely on the likes of stoma nurses who are able to give you so much help and support. But it's also good to try and talk to people who maybe have a stoma and who've been a wee bit longer in that process, to allow them to give you some sort of advice, and to help whenever things are bad, or even just to talk when things are bad. Because at the end of the day, we all have bad days with our stomas. There's days where it just does not work how we want it to be working. But to be able to talk to someone who has, and even have someone just to listen to what you have to say, not always push solutions, because sometimes people just want to give you a solution, but sometimes there is no solution. You just have to keep to the process. But I think it's just nice to have someone there just to listen to what you have to say, and to emphasize with you, and to give you a wee arm around your shoulder to go, you know what, tomorrow will be a better day.
Amazing. That's really beautiful advice. Thank you so much, David, for sharing your story, and we hope to keep in touch.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely rest of the day. The sun is finally shining.
Yes, thank you very much.
So you enjoy that and stay hydrated.
I'll try my hardest.
Thanks.
Have you seen the new Ostique skins yet? Ostique skins are revolutionary ostomy pouch covers that were created to make the wearer feel confident, sexy and powerful in all of life's moments. From moments of intimacy to lounging by the pool, conquering a workout or simply heading out to lunch, skins have you covered. Even better, they're compatible with all major colostomy and ileostomy bags. Ostique skins are available in a range of colours and skin tones, and they're made from a revolutionary material that's completely waterproof, high quality, soft and comfortable. Skins are easy to use, even with reduced dexterity, and they work with both closed and drainable bags. Plus, skins are also environmentally friendly and vegan. There are 4 bundles available to buy now, and you can also purchase individual skins. Head to ostique.co.uk to find out more.